The watering can is full, the hose is out, you showed up, which is more than most people do, and somehow your tomatoes still look like they're filing a complaint. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most watering damage doesn't look like damage. There's no dramatic wilting, no obvious crime scene. Your garden is just quietly underperforming, and the watering habits doing it are the same ones that feel completely correct. 4 specific habits to be exact. By the end of this video, you'll know all 4, and at least one of them is almost certainly happening in your garden right now. But before we get into what those habits are, there's something most gardeners never actually check, and once you understand it, you'll look at your watering completely differently. The surface of your soil is almost completely useless as information. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. After a solid rainstorm, you dig down a couple of inches, still bone dry. After a week with no rain, the surface looks parched, and it's perfectly moist 2 inches down. The surface shows you weather history. It doesn't show you what your roots are actually dealing with. And if you're making watering decisions based on what things look like up top, you are essentially guessing. The fix is boring and requires 0 special equipment. Push 2 fingers into the soil, 2 to 4 inches down. That's it. That's your watering reading. Not the surface, not your memory of when you last watered, not whether it rained 3 days ago. Your fingers down in the dirt. There's also a specific trap that catches a lot of gardeners midsummer. When soil gets very dry, it turns hydrophobic. It starts to actively repel water. You'll see it pool on the surface, maybe even run off the edges, and it genuinely looks like you've watered. You have not. The moisture got nowhere near the roots. And here's the cruel part. The plant still needs water. You just put it in completely the wrong place. The fix for that one is a 2-stage approach. Give it a short water, maybe 30 seconds, then walk away for 5 minutes. Let that first pass break the surface tension. Then come back and water properly. The soil will actually take it this time. And this is where patience becomes a real skill. Most people underwater because they move on too fast. They see water on the surface, assume the job is done, and walk away. For a mature plant in a raised bed in summer, you might need to stand there for 8 to 10 minutes to actually get water deep enough to matter. That's longer than it feels like. Time yourself once. You'll be surprised. Which brings up the real goal of deep watering. Plants grow their roots toward moisture. Short, shallow, daily watering trains roots to stay near the surface, which makes them more vulnerable to heat, drought, and stress. Deep, infrequent watering sends roots downward. The plant becomes structurally tougher, more self-sufficient. It's the difference between a plant that survives the week and one that barely notices it. The next habit is one that looks completely harmless from a distance. You'd never guess it was a problem just by watching it happen. In fact, most people doing it have been doing it for years and genuinely can't figure out why their plants keep getting sick. When water falls from above and hits soil, it doesn't just land there quietly. It splashes, and that splash carries soil and whatever's living in that soil directly up onto the undersides of your leaves. Fungal and bacterial disease lives in soil in huge concentrations, far higher than anything floating around in the air. When it gets launched onto leaves, it gets a new place to live, a warm, wet surface, and time to establish before you notice anything is wrong. This is exactly why disease almost always starts at the bottom of a plant and climbs upward. It's not bad luck, it's not a mystery, it's physics every single time. The plants most vulnerable to this are also the ones most people are growing. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash, melons, eggplant. If you're watching this, you probably have at least one of those in the ground right now. These are the plants worth changing your habits for. One quick thing worth clearing up, because it comes up constantly. Watering in the middle of the day does not burn your plants. The idea that water droplets focus sunlight like tiny lenses and scorch leaves is a myth. If that were true, every meadow in the country would ignite on a rainy afternoon. It doesn't happen. What does matter about midday watering is that you lose a lot of it to evaporation before the roots can use it, which is wasteful, but spontaneous combustion is not on the list of concerns. The best time to water is early morning. The plant has the whole day ahead of it to use what you just gave it, and any moisture that lands on leaves has hours to evaporate before nightfall. Evening watering works with one condition: try to keep it at the base. Wet leaves sitting through a warm night is exactly the environment fungal disease is waiting for. The solution is simple: water at the base, low and slow. Get the water to where the roots are, because that's genuinely the only place it does anything. A watering wand held near the soil works well. Drip irrigation handles it automatically. Leaves should be dry, roots should not. This next one is the mistake that doesn't just stress your plant. Under the right conditions, it physically destroys the fruit while it's still on the vine. And it happens because of something most gardeners don't know about how plants actually work. Plants are not smart. I mean that with full respect for plants, but it's important to understand. They don't regulate water intake. They don't sense that they've had enough and stop. Water arrives and they take it, mechanically, like a sponge. When you let a tomato, cucumber, or melon get very dry and then give it a big drink, the plant absorbs that water fast. If the fruit has already been growing at a consistent rate, the skin has hardened to a specific size. The sudden influx of water gets pushed straight into the fruit. It has nowhere to go. It splits open. You'll find it cracked on the vine the next morning, already claimed by birds and bugs. The window between it splitting and something eating it is remarkably short. This is why consistent watering matters for fruiting plants more than almost anything else. Not necessarily frequent, consistent. The goal is a steady rhythm, not daily panic. The other piece of this is the overwatering side, and it trips people up because the symptoms look identical to underwatering. Wilting, drooping. The plant looks like it's asking for water, except it's not. Waterlogged roots can't take up oxygen. They stop functioning. The plant wilts because the roots are failing, not because they're thirsty. If you misread it and water more, you make it worse. And this is the part where a lot of gardeners have a bad week and have no idea why. There's a cycle that happens, and almost every gardener goes through it. You water a lot because it's hot, then you feel like you're overdoing it and pull back, then you pull back too far, then it's hot again, so you water a lot. Back and forth, season after season. The plants ride this wave and they do not enjoy it. The fix isn't a perfect schedule, it's the finger test consistently, so you're actually responding to what the plant needs instead of how guilty you feel about the last few days. There's also the issue of changing needs over a season. A tomato seedling and a mature tomato producing fruit in peak summer are completely different animals in terms of water demand. The same schedule that worked in May will underwater that plant in July. You have to adjust. And if you're running automated irrigation, you need to revisit those settings as the season changes. Set it in spring and forget it is a great way to stress your plants when temperatures climb. And while we're at it, a vining tomato and a pot of rosemary should not be on the same watering schedule. Plants with completely different needs sitting next to each other makes everything harder. Something to keep in mind when you're planning what goes where. Design around water needs, not just aesthetics. The last one is the easiest fix on this list. One thing, doesn't cost much, takes 20 minutes to put down, and it quietly addresses almost everything we've just talked about. Mulch. Most people know mulch exists. Fewer people actually use it. And most of the people who skip it have no idea what they're giving up because the difference it makes isn't dramatic in any single moment. It's just that everything gets a little easier, a little more forgiving, and a little more consistent over an entire season. The biggest thing mulch does is cut evaporation, and the main way soil loses moisture isn't heat, it's actually wind. Wind moves across the surface of exposed soil constantly and pulls that top layer of moisture away. This happens whether you're watching or not, whether it's sunny or overcast. Mulch covers that surface. The moisture stays in the ground where it's useful, not carried off in the air. It also solves the splash problem directly. When water hits mulch instead of bare soil, it doesn't spray upward. Nothing gets launched onto the undersides of your leaves. Fungal disease loses one of its main ways of getting from the soil to the plant. You don't have to change anything about how you water. The mulch just handles it. And because the soil stays consistently moist for longer, the wild swings between too dry and too wet, the ones that split your fruit, become much smaller. Not eliminated, but smaller. The whole watering cycle gets easier to manage because you're not fighting the soil's tendency to dry out every 48 hours. Mulch also regulates soil temperature. In summer, bare soil can get genuinely hot enough to stress roots and kill off the beneficial microbial life that healthy soil depends on. A few inches of mulch keeps things cooler and more stable below the surface. Your soil biology stays intact. Your roots stay comfortable. The whole system works better. There are also compaction benefits. Watering and rain hitting bare soil over time packs it down, which makes it harder for water to penetrate and harder for roots to move. Mulch absorbs the impact. The soil underneath stays loose and open. The type of mulch is pretty much whatever you have: straw, wood chips, pine needles, compost, shredded leaves from last fall. The specifics matter a lot less than the act of actually putting something down. A few inches across the bed is enough. That's the whole job. If there's one thing on this list you can do this week, it's this one. You came into this video watering your garden. You're leaving it knowing exactly where those habits might have been quietly working against you. The soil surface that tells you nothing, the splash that carries disease up from the ground, the dry to drenched swing that splits fruit on the vine, and the bare soil that loses moisture to the wind all day long. None of these are things you'd figure out on your own without someone pointing at them directly. So now you have. And the changes are genuinely small. A finger in the soil, a wand instead of a shower head, a bag of straw. Small changes, whole different season. Here's what I want to know. Which one of these is most likely already playing out in your garden? Drop it in the comments. Specific answers only, not just all of them, though I respect the honesty. Hit like and subscribe if this was useful. And the next video? The algorithm's apparently confident you'll like it. Honestly, given what you just watched, it probably knows something. It's right there.